Jurors and alternates have returned. Mr. Durst is here, Mr. DeGuerin, and we have Mr. Chesnoff sitting next to Mr. Lewin.
Camaraderie, Your Honor.
Mr. Milius and Mr. Henderson. I see Mr. Bailey also. So, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like August 19, we're gonna take the day off to accommodate one of us, and we're off on the 18th also. So the 18th and the 19th of August. If we're still here, I think we probably will be, but we'll be real close to the end. But August 18 and 19, though, we'll be off, and so if that's a nice break. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, it's fine. We're gonna have enough time, but we are going to make that accommodation. So, with that in mind, let's move to back to the trial. So, Mr. Bailey?
Yes, Your Honor. So, the court pointed out correctly that we wouldn't be able to finish what we were planning on starting. So we're going to do something a little out of order.
Yes.
We're going to read the testimony of one of the defense witnesses, Max Courtney, out of order. And this was testimony from Galveston, Texas.
So this person was a defense witness in Galveston, but this person is being called, the people are presenting this evidence today? Or is the defense going out of order?
Yeah, it'll be a defense witness that we have no objection to them taking this witness out of order. Sure. Can we approach operator?
Yes. Students who happen to be watching today, and because we unexpectedly are going forward with this reading of testimony from Galveston, we've asked these volunteers, a couple of young people, to volunteer, young students. So that's what we'll do. Mr. DeGuerin, is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor, and we're kind of doing it on the fly because that's not what we had planned for today, but I think we can make it work. Max Courtney, who is the witness, has deceased, is dead. And so.
Yeah, and we're stipulating that Mr. Courtney, not only have we agreed to his prior testimony, but he's deceased.
Very well. So, who will be reading this? Will be reading the part of Courtney, Max Courtney.
Want to read it?
Okay, please come forward.
They just thought they were coming to watch today. We're making them work.
She looks pretty live to me.
Can you say your name for the record, please? It's C. Soto.
67.
We would have believed you. You didn't have to read.
There is a 65. Yeah. Yeah.
Itzi Soto, I-T-Z-I-S-O-T-O.
All right, Ms. Soto, please have a seat.
And the part of the prosecuting attorney, Mr. Bennett? Yes, no, the prosecuting attorney is Roel Ong, R-E-U-E-L-O-N-G.
Great.
Mr. DeGuerin is playing himself.
So this is a defense witness. So this defense witness is being called out of order. So this is testimony from the 28th day of October 2003, proceedings in front of the Honorable Susan Chris, Judge of the Galveston County District Court. And so I'm going to ask you to keep your mask, but who knows, like it is, and speak right into that microphone so you can be heard. You need a whole new set of batteries. Yeah. You ready, Mr. DeGuerin? That goes to the camera. It doesn't amplify.
Okay. Our next witness is Max Courtney.
You may proceed.
Who's doing the court?
Tim, you doing the court?
Yes.
Tim Henderson will be the court.
Thank
He
you.
always wanted to be a judge.
All right, Mr. Henderson.
The court, sir, you may come forward and please raise your right hand.
Max Courtney was called as a witness by the defendant, and first being duly sworn, assumed the witness stand upon examination, testified as follows. Would you introduce yourself, please, to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
My name is Max Courtney.
This is pretend. So, Mr. Courtney, tell the jury, please, what you do for a living.
I'm a forensic scientist. I own and operate a forensic consultant services in Fort Worth, and I serve as the laboratory director.
Tell us, please, what your educational background is and your training and experience.
I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in chemistry from West Texas State University in 1967 and a Master's of Science in chemistry in 1969 from West Texas State. I have some additional academic training at Texas Christian University 69 to 73. I have worked in forensic science since about 1970, first at Fort Worth Police Crime Lab from 1970 to 1918, and then at the University of Texas at Arlington in the Criminal Justice Program as a faculty member from 80 to 86. I started business in 1976 and have done just that since 1986. During the last 33 years, I have attended numerous schools, seminars, and scientific meetings dealing with all aspects of forensic science.
So Mr. Balin's going to fix your microphone for you, okay?
You can speak right into there.
And you can tip it up a little bit so it's closer to your mouth.
And then also the court reporter down so she could just slow her pace reading a little bit. She's typing everything, you stay down. Okay.
Just presently, tell us about some of the places that you've lectured or taught or been on the faculty.
Most recent course I have taught that was about 3 weeks ago at the DEA Academy. The Drug Enforcement Administration taught a 1-week course on shooting reconstruction. I have talked to some secular groups and school teachers and things like that since then, but that's the most recent scientific training.
And where was that DEA training week done?
At the Academy in Quantico, Virginia.
And that's the most recent thing. Through the years, have you taught either at the police academies around the country, the FBI Academy, the DEA Academy, places like that?
Yes, sir. Colleges, crime labs, all sorts of places.
As a forensic scientist, who hires you? Who uses your services?
Most of our business is working directly for police departments. We have contracts with, I think, 14 police agencies in and around Tarrant County. We also do work just on a case-by-case basis for another 20 or so agencies. That's probably 3,000 cases a year. We also do consulting cases, about 150 a year, and those including attorneys. And that would be civil cases, either side, criminal cases to either side, private citizens on occasions, investigators, companies, concerned parents, so most work is for law enforcement.
I think I'm going to give you another microphone so you can have two. Sort of a super duper microphone.
When you say most work is for law enforcement, do you testify from time to time in court?
I do.
And what courts of the country have you testified in?
I have testified in probably a third of the counties of Texas. I'm sorry. I have testified in probably 10 or 11 states. I have testified in federal courts in several states.
And when you testify, can you tell us, is it usually for the defense, or is it usually for the prosecution, or what percentage either way?
The majority is for the prosecution, but I testify for the defense also, and occasionally in civil cases, but most of it is testifying for the state of Texas.
And, in fact, have you, at my invitation, come and taught my class at the University of Texas on several occasions?
Yes, sir, I have.
Each year for the past several years?
Yes, sir.
And did I engage you to examine an apartment located at 2213 Avenue K in Galveston?
Yes, sir, you did.
Did you make diagrams and drawings and so forth of what you found?
Yes, sir.
Did you also examine, before it was sent to other laboratories, a portion of the wall from 2213 Avenue K that had been removed by the Galveston Police Department and preserved in a way so it could be inspected?
Yes, sir, I did.
Which did you do first? Did you examine that wall or did you go to the apartment first?
I examined the wall and then later, at a later time, came back and examined the apartment.
You've seen, haven't you, the report of Mr. Tom Bevel?
Yes, sir. Well, I haven't seen his report. I have seen a statement of facts, but I don't believe I have actually seen a written report.
So you've seen his testimony
Yes, sir.
in this case.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with it?
Yes, sir, I would say I do.
Okay. Now, in addition to examining the blood spatter, do you, by the way, have you testified as a blood spatter expert in other cases?
Yes, sir, I have.
And for whom have you testified in such cases?
For both sides, most of them have been criminal cases. There actually have been a few civil cases, but I have testified for both sides, again, probably more commonly for the state, but also for the defense.
All right. Have you seen some photographs attempting to illustrate how the blood spatter, in this case, could have gotten on the wall?
Yes, sir.
I'll show you these photographs. First, did you do a chart of your own drawing exactly the blood spatter that you examined on the wall before it was sent off for anybody else to look at?
Yes, sir, I did.
Charting the exact location and type and so forth of the blood spatter?
Yes, sir.
What do you do in order to examine a wall for blood spatter?
I start off with just a visual examination, and then typically we use some magnification to look at the individual blood stains.
Let me show you, Mr. Courtney, Defendant's Exhibits 67 and 68. A computerized animation of two people on the floor in a reconstruction of or a model of the apartment. Editorial. Yes, we'll stipulate that due to something that doesn't matter, Mr. Durst was removed from this computer animation at this point, not from the computer animation that's in evidence and that the jury has seen.
All right.
So let me show you, Mr. Courtney, the Defendant's Exhibit 67 and then 68. A computerized animation of two people on the floor in a reconstruction of or a model of the apartment. Does the gunshot that's depicted in Defendant's 67, get back up, and the placement of the person who in the position of Morris Black and the person in the position of Bob Durst, is that consistent with what's depicted in Defendant's Exhibit 68, the pattern of the blood spatter on the wall?
Yes, sir, that would be a probability.
And what's depicted in 68, in addition to the two figures positioned on the floor, is what is that overlay on the wall? Maybe have time out a second. Let me show you, Mr. Courtney, Defendant's Exhibit 67. one. And 68. A computerized animation of two people on the floor in a reconstruction of the, or a model of the apartment. Does the gunshot that's depicted in the Defendant's Exhibit 67, and the placement of the person who is in the position of Morris Black and the person in the position of Bob Durst, is that consistent with what's depicted in Defendant's Exhibit 68? The pattern of the blood spatter on the wall. Page 71, line 22.
Okay.
71, line 22.
Yes, sir, that would be a probability.
Possibility.
Possibility, I'm sorry.
And what's depicted in 68?
I believe,
No. In addition to the two figures positioned on the floor is, what is that overlay on the wall?
I believe, I am not sure which one it is.
That's what you're looking through, is your bench notes and diagram?
Yes, sir. That is a diagram, a scale diagram I made of the spatter I saw on what was originally marked 847248, 847494, 847247, and 847244.
And those numbers that you've just recited were identification numbers given by the Galveston Police Department to the wall, and the wall, what is that called?
The baseboard?
The baseboard and the frame around the door.
Yes, sir.
Okay, may I see that, and let's mark your diagram, please. Is that what has been marked Defendant's Exhibit 81, a copy of your bench notes on your examination of the blood spatter?
Yes, sir.
That's not it. The number's incorrect, Your Honor. Yeah.
You can renumber it.
Okay, we'll renumber it. I called it 81 in the transcripts, but it's actually 82.
Okay.
What your answer is on page 72, line 21.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir.
As I pass this in front of the jury, I don't think they'd invented this thing back then, Judge. As I pass this in front of the jury, you've got another copy of it there. Would you explain what we are looking at, please?
These are stains which appear to be possible blood stains on the exhibits that I examined at the district attorney's office on those 4 pieces of evidence, and the numbers correspond to the numbers that have been placed on there prior to my examining it. So my number 1 would be the same as the number 1 that was already there.
You've drawn kind of an elliptical circle around the pattern. What is the purpose of drawing that elliptical circle?
Kind of a best fit diagram of where the drops are.
Does that circle describe sort of a plume that goes out from a blood spatter?
Certainly consistent with that, yes, sir.
And is that elliptical pattern consistent with blood spatter occurring at the source of the blood? Was one's head on the floor about 18 inches from the wall, being shot somewhat in opposition to the spatter coming out from the head?
Certainly consistent with that, yes, sir.
just as is shown in Defendant's Exhibit 67 and 68.
Yes, sir.
Place those, please. All right. Is the overlay that appears in Defendant's Exhibit 68 your drawing to scale on the wall?
Yes, sir.
Now I want to switch gears with you for just a second and ask you if Defendant's Exhibit 69, a diagram in 70 through 81, a diagram, 70,
It's being, I think. It's a spring, but being. There's a typo.
another one?
Yeah, it's being photographs, not bring photographs.
Being photographed.
Oh, and 70 through 81, being photographs are materials that you are familiar with and that you have prepared yourself. Line 21. Page 74, line 21.
Is that through 81?
81, I believe. I've got two 81s. Your Honor, let me remark what I have marked as defendant's 81 and as evidence as 82. There's where the mistake is.
Okay.
The court, the diagram. You want that 82?
Previously referred to as 81 is now 82.
The court. Okay.
And yes, sir, these are materials that I prepared.
Defendants Exhibit 69 through 81, 69 being a diagram, and 69 being a diagram, 70 through 81 being photographs taken by Mr. Courtney.
And those photographs are accurately depict what you are attempting to show with the photographs.
Actually, you just stole my line.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. And those photographs accurately depict what you are attempting to show with the photographs.
Yes, sir.
You got those? Yeah. It's called the numbers.
70.
What?
70.
70.
71.
Okay. There we go. 72. 73. 74. 75. 76. 77. 78. 79. 80. 81. Mr. Courtney, I think we have these on where we can show them on a screen so the jury can be looking at them as we discuss them rather than passing these back and forth in front of the jury. I'll hold these up before discussing with you. First, 69 is a diagram of the apartment, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that diagram to scale?
Yes, sir, it is.
First, Defendant's Exhibit 69, is that one of several scale diagrams that you made of the apartment at 2213 Avenue K?
Yes, sir.
Did you take detailed measurements, photographs, and so forth?
Yes, sir.
And did I ask you to see if you could find somewhere in the neighborhood of the archway a bullet hole?
Yes, sir.
Did you find one?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you Defendant's Exhibit 70 and explain what the jury is looking at with Defendant's Exhibit 70.
That is, it's the apartment on the west side of, I'm not going to remember which one is one and which is two. It's the one on the west side of the downstairs, as one has gone through the front door and is looking towards the back of the apartment. That would be looking from the living room into the kitchen.
All right, so looking at Defendant's Exhibit 8, the scale model, we don't have that here, Your Honor, it was an actual model. We would be looking from what direction to what direction?
May I see that again?
Okay, that would be standing probably about toward the west window.
No, that's my line.
Oh,
You're-
I told you we're doing this on the fly. We didn't rehearse this.
Okay.
Go ahead, that would be standing. Your line 77, line 15.
So, okay, that would be standing probably about towards the west window on the front wall. The west window, yes, sir, towards that way just a little bit, and then looking into the kitchen.
All right, so, all right.
Yes, sir.
And where did you find evidence of a bullet?
That would be on the door facing, which would be the east side of that doorway on the living room side, 57 inches above the floor.
Let's use left and right. If a person is standing in the neighborhood of the television set, which is not in the diagram, it was in the model, and looking toward the back of the apartment, would it be on that person's left or that person's right?
On that person's left.
In other words, on the left side of the archway,
Yes, sir.
about 57 inches high.
Yes, sir.
If I put a little yellow sticky and approximate 57 inches, you tell me where to put it.
All right, sir.
We'll start out,
A little more.
okay,
A little more. Probably about in there. The doorway is 83 inches, so that's,
okay, so somewhere in the neighborhood of where I put this yellow sticky.
yes, sir.
Defendant's Exhibit 71, another photograph. Tell us what this photograph shows.
That shows the defect that is covered with a latex caulk or putty.
When did you examine the apartment for the bullet hole?
First examination was on January 23rd, 2002.
Had the apartment recently been painted when you examined it?
Apparently so. It had the appearance.
Did it have the same linoleum as the photographs that the police took?
No, sir.
Okay, leading to what conclusion?
New linoleum. No.
Thank you. Defendant's Exhibit 72. What does 72? I'll show you 72 and 73 at the same time. What do they show? 72 is in my right hand and 73 is in my left hand.
Increasingly blown up views of that same patched hole where the latex caulk or putty is on it.
What did you do when you found, other than photographing, which we see that you've done here, what did you do when you found what you thought was a bullet hole?
I probed the surface and found that there was some soft latex-based material in it, which I removed. I found miscellaneous material in it, including a swab, which would be like a Q-tip, some fibrous material, and some debris.
Let me show you Defendant's Exhibit 74 and tell the jury what that shows, depicts.
That's the material that came out of the hole that would be showing in Defendant's 70, I believe.
Tell us what's in Defendant's 75.
That's the hole with the latex material removed from it.
And Defendant's Exhibit 76.
I probed that. I first tried to probe it with some metal dowels that I have with the laser kit, which wouldn't fit into it. And so I went to the local hardware store and bought a series of nails and found that the nail that would just fit in it without altering the hole, and inserted the nail to probe it and explored the trajectory of what passed through there.
First, did you take fairly careful measurements of the size of the hole?
I did.
And what was the size of the hole, the diameter, or however you measured it?
Pretty close to 0.22 inch.
What significance is that, 0.22 inch?
It matched the caliber of a .22 cartridge or a .22
bullet.
bullet. I don't have that. Oh, it's down here.
How are calibers? I'm sure a number of the people on the jury don't understand how you call something a 22 or a 38 or a 45 and so forth. What does a 22 caliber mean in measurement?
That's the name given to it, and it's related to the size. In the case of a .22, it is a true caliber as opposed to a nominal caliber like a .38, which is not true. But a .22 has a diameter of 22 inches.
Did you find any, I'm going to jump ahead for just a second, did you find any residue, lead residue?
Not at that time.
Okay, now let me get back on track. You said that you put this nail in to try to track a trajectory. Tell the jury what you did in that regard and what you found.
Without forcing it to alter the hole, I inserted the nail trying to follow the hole through the wood and just tapping it back behind. I believe that I felt an additional defect back behind that board, and that was one by about 1/6 or maybe I think it's a 1/6. But I cleared that and kept going and hit something else. And when I probed and moved it around, it felt like there was another defect in the wall behind that board.
And did you then take the, by the way, what is this hole? What is this hole?
That's the door that faces the living room. Faces north on the east side of that entry between the kitchen and the living room, 57 inches above the floor.
Did you remove that facing, that door facing, and other parts?
On another occasion, I did.
And why was it on another occasion?
Well, we didn't have permission to tear up certain parts of the apartment at that time.
Was that because of the landlord?
Yes, sir.
And the landlord eventually gave that permission?
Yes, sir.
In fact, was he present during some of the examination?
He was present and let us in. I don't remember him actually being there while we were doing our examinations, but he did let us in.
Was it conditioned that we repair it in as good or better condition?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
And so, did you remove that that door frame?
Ultimately, I did. after I did other things first.
Okay, what else did you do before you did that?
Okay. After I had set the trajectory and found what I believed was an additional defect, I then projected the laser from the nail, using it as a dowel now, projected a handheld laser and noted where the laser projected.
And by that method, what were you able to tell?
The laser dot showed up on one of the windows on the front of the house, and that would be the east one, or one closer to the front door, and it was right at the latch between the upper and lower sashes of the window.
So roughly in the area that I am holding my finger?
Yes, sir.
Now, does that tell you exactly where the gun was that fired the bullet that made the hole?
It would be somewhere along that line. We don't know how close or how far away it was. It doesn't look like it was real close because there's no peppering of the wood with gunpowder, but somewhere along that line approximately. And that could vary just a little bit, but basically along that line.
If I put another yellow sticky at the window in approximately the location that the laser hit when you projected it out from the bullet hole, would you tell me where to put it?
All right, sir. It would be on that middle frame down some, and if you want to want the center of the paper on it, then I would center that on the middle of the frame there.
About here?
No, I would take it down some. If you are going to go middle to middle, down some more.
Okay.
Down some more, right about there.
All right. Again, Your Honor, we don't have that actual model here.
Now the middle of the paper is going to be just about where the laser dot hit.
Okay, now, then were you able to measure what you believe was the trajectory of the bullet that caused the hole?
Yes, sir.
Describe what the trajectory was. Well, describe it, please.
The laser dot hit the window at the height of 58 inches from the floor, and over that distance, that's not much drop. Certainly, that would be within the error range. So I would say basically generally horizontal, maybe up a little bit, down a little bit, but not great deviation up or down 57 inches off the floor into the door facing, and actually traveling through the door facing from, as I am standing looking at it now, and that would be from the front of the house to the back of the house. Some deflection, slight deflection left to right until it hits another piece of wood inside, which I don't know at this time.
Didn't know. Which I didn't know at the time. If you assume that the person that fired the bullet, that caused the bullet hole, that came from the trajectory that you found was 5 foot 7 inches tall, how would he have to be standing? And how would he have to be holding the gun when he fired the bullet that caused the bullet hole?
You want me to demonstrate?
If you could stand and show us.
Basically, it would be something along about like this. Not precisely, but pretty close to it.
Now describe in words what you just did, please.
I was standing up straight, and I am not 5 feet 7, but I was standing up straight and playing a 5 feet 7 person, and my right arm was simply extended horizontally.
Of course, you don't know whether it's his right arm or left arm.
I don't.
So a 5 foot 7 inch person holding their arm out level and shooting would be consistent with the evidence that you found?
Yes, sir, it would.
Let's explain that for the jury, please. A person 5 foot 7, where roughly would that person's arm and shoulder be if he was holding a gun out and pointing it in a way that you did?
Well, that's going to be not far away from 10 inches in my own case from my head to my extended arm. 67 inch person, 5'7", and a 57 inch trajectory would certainly be consistent.
Now, you went back when we got permission from the apartment owner to take it apart, basically, right?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you Defendant's Exhibits 77 and 78. and ask you what 77 and 78 show as I showed them to the jury.
We have taken,
77 in my right hand, on the screen now, and 78 in my left hand on the screen.
in 77, we have taken off the wood with the hole in it and revealed 2 additional defects. 78 is going to be an enlargement of that area. Basically, it shows a larger timber there with a crease in the corner of it, and then another 1 by 6 which faces towards the inside of the door, which has a crease on the inside of it.
So did you get the door frame and another part of the wood?
We got the door frame that faces the living room, the door frame that faces the other side of the opening, and we got a cutting from a large piece of timber that had the defect on the corner of it.
Are those things now in the courtroom where they could be marked
Yes, sir.
and offered for evidence?
They are.
We would like to do that, Your Honor. Do you also have a number of the things that you preserved marked for evidence?
Yes.
Not marked for evidence, but preserved for evidence.
Yes, sir.
As I hand these to you and as I have marked them, would you tell the jury, please, what they are? There should be a number on there. Oh, that's your line.
There should be a number on there.
Yes.
Do we want to tag these and talk about numbers?
What I will do is take the paper off them and tag them.
Okay,
If you will identify them first.
sure. I'm going to take the paper off of what I have designated number 4, which is a piece of wood.
Not preserved, we don't have it, Your Honor. I have marked as Defendant's Exhibit 83, Your Honor. And that is one of the pieces of wood that you removed from the apartment at 2213 Avenue K, Apartment 2.
Yes, sir. That's the one that faces towards the front wall.
All right, what is the next one?
The next one was the board. This board that was on the inside of the door frame that would actually cross the door opening to the other side of the frame.
So it would be the cross piece
Yes, sir.
actually in the doorway.
Right.
The first 83 was the facing of the archway, and what I've marked as 84 would be the inside part.
Yes, sir. This still has some nails for the record at the top and at the bottom that are bent down.
Again, not preserved, Your Honor. All right, so if we turn it around this way toward the jury, I will mark this as Defendant's Exhibit 84, and this is again the actual facing of the inside of the archway.
Yes, sir.
Exhibit 84.
By Mr. Bennett, no objection. The court admitted.
What else do you have?
That would be the interior board, a cutting from it.
All right, would you remove that? I marked this as Defendant's Exhibit 85 and explain to the jury what Defendant's Exhibit 85 is, please.
This is the cutout portion with the defect on it on the corner of the board that's showing in Defendant 78 and also a bigger picture of it in Defendant 79 and 80.
On the screen, 79. On the screen, 80. So, and this is also shown at 81.
Yes, sir.
All right, let me see if I can pass all 3 of these in front of the jury as you described. If you will, what we see in 80, 81, and 79, 80, and 81.
Okay, that would be,
And you can use, as I show the photographs, Mr. Courtney, would you also explain what we are looking at and show us the actual piece of wood?
okay. In Defendants 81, this is a piece of wood and this would be inside both Defendants 83 and 84. This is actually the piece of wood across here underneath there that when the dowel was inserted, that defect is what I felt. And then the other 2, okay, in 80 and 79. In addition to this defect, it also shows a defect which is seen on the back of 84, which would be the area right here. And I am pointing to which is actually 55 inches. I will check slightly lower than 57 inches. When I get back, I will look that up and see exactly what the height of that is.
Did you find the bullet?
No, sir.
Did you look?
We did.
What did you find where you would have expected to find the bullet?
Well, we found a lot of what I would say years worth of debris, plaster, wood, debris, insect parts, all sorts of things, which we sifted through, picked up, swept up, and vacuumed up, and then examined microscopically, and I found no bullet.
But show the jury on Defendant's Exhibit 83, this was the actual facing, again, not here, now, on which you found the first bullet hole of the first hole in the wood.
Yes, sir.
Where is the hole on Exhibit 83?
Here, this is an area that was generally 57 inches high, about 1.5 inches above the rail to the jury box. It looks like right now, but I am pointing to it.
You said 1.5 inches?
Excuse me, 1.5 feet. Thank you.
Let me put a yellow sticky on that. And if you flip the board over, what do you see?
You see a punched out hole on the back of it.
So putting that together, is the hole in the exit part of the wood larger or smaller than the hole in the entry part of the wood?
It's larger.
Why is that?
That's what happens when a bullet passes through wood. There's some conical effect. The wood starts fracturing and it fractures out and continues to fracture out. It's splintering. So it's going to be somewhat a conical hole, larger on the outshoot than on the inshoot.
Would either of the pictures or the wood then explain to us, in your opinion, what happened after the bullet penetrated this piece of wood?
I'm going to use defendants 78, 85, and 84 to illustrate that. 78 shows the photograph, is a photograph showing that the hole in the larger piece of wood right in the middle, and then the defect on the defendant's 84. Now we'll take this down the jury so everyone can see it. And the larger defect and the defect on the left of 78 would be the piece of wood which is in defendant's 85.
Is that also shown in 79, 80, and 81?
Yes, sir.
So what you did was saw a piece of wood that we see in 79, 80, and 81 out. And that's what is 85?
Yes, sir. And then the smaller defect in the defendant's 78 on the other piece of wood to the right is going to be the defect here on defendant's 84. And these you will align themselves as they were actually put together in the apartment. They align themselves consistent with being a continuing trajectory through the facing across the support wood inside and bouncing off the interior trim and going somewhere.
All right, okay. You can take your seat. Now I've been introducing the terminology trajectory. Maybe I should use the term path of the bullet. Was the path of the bullet consistent with a bullet having been fired from the front of the room toward the street, toward the back of the room?
Yes, sir.
Now, you didn't find an actual slug?
I did not.
What happens to a .22 bullet after it goes through material such as wood like that? Do you expect to find an intact slug, or do you expect to find particles, or what do you expect to find?
I would expect, in this situation, I would expect at least a somewhat intact fragment. If you look at defendant's 84, you see some obvious fragmentation, very small holes through the greater defect there or the trace. But I believe it was fairly well intact at that point, and very well might have gone across to the other side and possibly was overlicked with the debris from the other side. When the wall section was pulled out, it could have gone back into the plaster.
By the time you inspected on January 2002, and again a week or so after that to actually take it apart, had the wall portion that had been taken out that you had inspected earlier, had that portion been repaired?
Yes, sir.
And I think I asked you this, but could you tell whether the apartment had been freshly painted before you got there?
Yes, sir. It appeared to be freshly painted.
The term that you found in the hole, I'm not talking about the Q-tip and the cotton and the other material that you dug out of the hole, but the material that patched the hole. What was that material?
Some sort of soft caulk or putty. It was not real hard, but it was still somewhat flexible, pliable.
Do you know how long that material takes to cure?
I don't really know what the material was. I didn't do any characterization of it, so I really couldn't say.
Let me show you what's been introduced as Defendant's Exhibit 66. I tell you that these are photographs taken by the police in October, early October of 2001, of Morris Black's apartment. There are 2 canisters or tubes of material, and on those canisters it reads Alex Plus. Maybe you can read the small writing.
Yes, sir.
What does it say?
Acrylic. Well, not all the smart writing. It does say acrylic latex caulking silicone.
Is that consistent with the material that you found in that hole?
I would say generally consistent. Again, I didn't do any analysis on it, but I have used the DAP latex caulks, and I would say that they are generally consistent. Yes, sir.
Now back to the hole itself. You mentioned that you found lead residue. Would you explain to the jury what you did to examine the hole for lead?
I haven't said that yet, actually.
Okay, did you do that?
I did.
Explain to the jury what you did.
I used a test called sodium rhodocyanate test. We applied a reagent to very small segments of
Reagent.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
To very small segments of it so we could preserve for any other tests someone would want to do. Got positives on defendants 83, the door facing, 85, the larger block of wood, 84. We didn't test because there was just an extremely small amount of the grayish looking material on there, and we didn't want to use it all up with just a chemical test, so it would be preserved for whatever testing. So we got positives on 83 and 85 and did not test 84.
What does a positive result on those 2, as you call them bullet holes, what does a positive result mean?
It confirms the belief that that's a bullet hole showing lead there.
From your examination, do you have an opinion that that is a bullet hole? Well, what is your opinion?
Well, given everything I have, the trajectory appearance, the lead residue, just overall appearance, size, and shape, I don't know what else it could be. I believe it's a bullet hole.
Were you also asked to examine the pantry area for a bullet?
Yes, sir.
Did you find anything?
I did not.
Did you have any information about what might have been in the pantry at the time a bullet was fired into the pantry?
Yes, sir, generally.
Well then, tell the jury, assuming that there had been in the pantry boxes in which a television set, a microwave, and other electronic material or radio or so forth, with a bicycle box and the styrofoam that those things come packed in, if a .22 was shot into material like that, would it go all the way through so you would find the bullet, or would that be enough to absorb the bullet somewhere in those boxes?
It would really depend on how much the material was there and what else it might have hit. Like if it had a brad or a staple or something like that. I couldn't say. I would say it would be a possibility that enough of the material would stop such a bullet, yes.
Okay. One other thing, you took very careful measurements of the apartment.
Yes, sir.
If a person were standing somewhere along in the path of this bullet, a person firing the bullet,
Yes, sir.
could that person be seen from someone emerging from the bathroom?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you what's already been introduced in evidence here, as State's Exhibit 345.
Here. I think he wants to take our break.
You can, you can finish this in 1 minute, I think. It's the last page.
Oh, yeah.
Let's finish it, it's 4:30, after 4:30.
Let me show you what's already been introduced into evidence here as State's Exhibit 345, a photograph taken by the police on October the 3rd, I believe. At any rate, October the 2nd or 3rd, during a search of the apartment number 2. Do you see in that photograph the defect that you found later?
Certainly something there in the same place approximately. This is not a 345 is not a 2-scale photograph, but it looks to me within roughly 57 inches, roughly above the floor. Yes, sir. It's in the same location. Yes, sir.
State's 345, if I might pass it before the jury, Your Honor.
All right.
Is that where you want to break, John?
No, you got one more paragraph. Courts is all right. Go ahead.
Okay,
97, line 24.
97, line 24.
okay. Now, is this photo of sufficient quality that you can tell to assert whether that's the same defect or not?
No, sir.
Does it appear, however, to be in about the same position?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll, there's just a little bit of this left tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We'll hear it. We'll do the cross-examination. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.